more studies are showing that these mimicries, these molecules that mimic fasting or combinations of both, will help you beat cancer.
Fasting is only part of the equation. Meet Dr. David Sinclair, a renowned professor of genetics at Harvard Medical School and a leading voice in the science of longevity. While his age has progressed, he's now 54, his vitality and youthful appearance defy the clock. How does he do it? Dr. Sinclair attributes his remarkable health to a revolutionary approach to eating, fasting, and living, all grounded in cutting-edge science. As he explains, his body is biologically younger than ever.
I've looked at my blood biochemistry and I'm actually now younger and healthier than I've ever been. Testosterone, glucose, inflammation, blood cell composition. For most of those markers, I'm better than a 20-year-old for health.
Ready to uncover the top strategies and foods for longevity? Let's dive in. 1. Fasting for longevity. First up, let's talk about fasting. Now, I know the word fasting might sound intimidating, but it's not as extreme as you think.
Yeah, there are dozens of studies showing that periods of fasting is beneficial to people who are obese, not just because they lose weight, but they turn on their body's defenses. They become more insulin sensitive and their glucose levels come down. Also showing that people of regular weight, like me, can benefit from fasting. There's a number of studies there, and these are all in the show notes if somebody wants to go and check them out. But what's really interesting is that certain diseases, type 1 diabetes, multiple sclerosis, even cancer, those diseases seem to also benefit from fasting, including when you combine chemotherapy with fasting. You get this double benefit for many types of cancers. And then the final point that I think is really interesting is you can mimic fasting, say metformin. A number of doctors prescribe metformin to patients with prostate cancer because more studies are showing that these mimicries, these molecules that mimic fasting or combinations of both, will help you beat cancer.
Dr. Sinclair says that fasting is one of the most powerful tools we have to extend our lifespan. Why? Because when we fast, our bodies activate what he calls longevity pathways. These pathways, like SIRT1 and AMPK, help repair our cells, reduce inflammation, and boost metabolism. It's like giving your body a chance to clean house. Intermittent fasting is a popular and practical way to do this. For example, you can try the 16.8 method, where you eat during an 8-hour window and fast for the remaining 16 hours. It's simple, and the benefits are huge. Fasting promotes autophagy, a process where your body gets rid of old, damaged cells to make way for new ones. Plus, it can help prevent diseases like diabetes and heart issues. If you're new to fasting, start small. Maybe skip breakfast or push it a little later in the day. Once your body gets used to it, you'll feel the difference in your energy and focus. Trust me, it's worth trying. 2. Foods to avoid for longevity. Okay, so we've talked about when to eat. Now let's discuss what not to eat. Sugar. This one probably isn't a surprise. Sugar is everywhere, and it's wreaking havoc on our health.
Right. Well, the big killer is sugar.
Yeah.
Glucose, particularly fructose, is also pernicious. And if you give animals lots of glucose, and especially fructose, they will get fatty liver disease, they'll get diabetes. It's really 2 reasons that glucose is bad when it spikes. 3 if you include the brain fog, but let's just talk about physiology here. One is that you're going to have glucose attached to proteins that makes them glum up. Think of it like caramelized body parts. This will ultimately lower your longevity, reduce your longevity, give you type 2 diabetes and probably cardiovascular disease on top of that. So that's one, keep those glucose levels down. But also what glucose is going to be doing to you at high levels is shutting off those protective mechanisms. Remember, particularly AMPK and the sirtuins, they get switched off by sugar. So by having that up for most of the day, if you're eating 3 meals plus snacks, your defenses against disease and aging are going to be working at a minimum. So instead, keep those glucose levels low and consistent. You won't get the brain fog. You'll get fewer proteins modified that'll lead to disease. And thirdly, importantly, you'll actually stimulate your body's natural defenses against disease and aging.
It's not just about avoiding candy or soda. Sugar hides in so many processed foods. Try replacing sugary snacks with natural options like fruits, nuts, or dark chocolate. Your body and your future self will thank you. Red meat.
Something else to avoid is super high protein because mTOR, it can be activated, but you don't want it activated all the time because it's not going to turn on the autophagy, the defenses to recycle protein. Well, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people who believe that carnivore diets are the best. Well, certainly if you're an athlete or you want to bulk up, there are short-term gains. You'll feel better if you eat meat. You'll obviously have the protein to build up that muscle. But we can go through the evidence. When you look at populations of what they eat and how long they live, as well as the short-term effects when you eat a high-protein, carnivorous, red meat-based diet, those changes will be good in the short run. But long-term, there's no evidence. In fact, I would say there's counter-evidence to that being beneficial for longevity if that's your goal.
The occasional burger or steak isn't going to kill you, but cutting back and swapping red meat for plant-based proteins can make a big difference. Think lentils, beans, or even tofu. So, by reducing these two culprits, sugar and red meat, you're already taking a huge step towards a healthier, longer life. 3. Longevity-promoting diets. Now, onto the fun part, what you should eat. Dr. Sinclair highlights two standout diets that have been linked to longevity. Plant-based diets.
What's interesting is that there was a really big study by the Adventist Health. Let's talk about that because what they calculated was the chance of dying based on various diets. And these were thousands of people. And what they found was that what's called the hazard ratio went down the more vegetarian and vegan you were. What does that mean? Your chance of dying goes down. And the number goes from 0 to 1. Whereas 1 is you're pretty likely to die tomorrow. Whereas a low number, which is around 80, means you've got 20% less chance of dying on any given day with this hazard ratio. So the numbers are the following. Non-vegetarians are at 1, if you call that 1. Compared to that, the next best one was semi-vegetarians at 0.92 and octo-ovo or lacto-ovo vegetarians 0.91. Okay, so about almost a 10% reduction in mortality, death. And then you get into vegans, which 0.85, so that's 15% reduction in death. And then the best one was pesco vegetarians, a little bit of meat from fish. Probably the fish oils in there are beneficial. And then you're down to 0.81. So that's a 19% reduction in your chance of death at any given day late in life.
A diet rich in plants is like a superpower for your health. Vegetables, fruits, legumes, and whole grains are packed with antioxidants, vitamins, and fiber that protect your cells and reduce inflammation. Plus, plant-based diets are great for the planet. Start by adding more greens to your meals: spinach, kale, broccoli. And don't forget the protein-rich plants like chickpeas and quinoa. Okinawan diet and blue zones.
It's mostly carbohydrate, so there's a fair amount of rice, but probably could have done better with a bit of brown rice. White rice sends your glucose through the roof.
Right.
But mostly what I was eating were Chinese or Japanese vegetables that I could get at the local market. So they're organic, fresh, green, full of vitamins, and soy. Mostly it was that. It was a plant-based, soy-based diet with a little bit of fish. And I looked great. I felt great.
The Okinawa diet, a cornerstone of longevity in Japan's Okinawa region, is a prime example of the eating habits seen across the blue zones. Blue zones are regions worldwide where people live exceptionally long, healthy lives, including Okinawa, Japan, Sardinia, Italy, Ikaria, Greece, Nicoya, Costa Rica, and Loma Linda, California. In Okinawa, the diet is predominantly plant-based, featuring nutrient-dense staples such as sweet potatoes, tofu, seaweed, and a variety of vegetables. Rich in antioxidants, vitamins, and fiber, these foods combat inflammation and oxidative stress, contributing to reduced rates of chronic diseases like heart disease and cancer. A unique practice in Okinawa is harahachi-bu, or eating until 80% full, which prevents overeating and supports healthy aging. The blue zones share common dietary themes: a reliance on whole, unprocessed foods, minimal consumption of red meat and refined sugar, and an emphasis on legumes, vegetables, and healthy fats. Beyond diet, these regions prioritize active lifestyles, strong community bonds, and purposeful living. All right, I know this all sounds great in theory, But how do you actually make it work in your life? Here are a few practical tips to get you started. Experiment with fasting. Start with a 12-hour fast overnight, then gradually increase it to 14 or 16 hours if it feels right. Clean out your pantry. Get rid of sugary snacks and processed foods. Stock up on nuts, seeds, and fresh fruits instead. Go plant-based. Once a week, try meatless Mondays, or add a vegetarian meal to your routine. You'll be surprised how satisfying it can be. Try Mediterranean or Okinawan recipes. Explore new dishes like Mediterranean chickpea salad or Okinawan sweet potato stew. Cooking can be a fun way to embrace these diets. Stay consistent. Longevity isn't about perfection, it's about long-term habits. Start small and build from there. So, there you have it. Dr. David Sinclair's top tips for eating and living for longevity. Start making these changes today, and your future self will thank you.